everyone. Thank you for joining us on the penultimate day of COP30 here at the NDC Pavilion for what we hope to be a really interesting event and conversation on empowering climate leaders of tomorrow, advancing green skills and higher education to drive NDC action. We only have 1 hour for this event, so I'm going to be fairly quick in my remarks, and so I would like to welcome everyone here. But for the more formal welcome, I would like to introduce Mr. Suresh Yadav. He's the director. He's the director, Climate Change and Oceans Directorate at the Commonwealth Secretariat. Over to you.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ankita, and good morning and very warm welcome to each one of you and also to those who are joining online, both as your participants and as well as the speaker. It's my real privilege to welcome you here on behalf of the Commonwealth Secretariat for this joint side event with the Commonwealth Association of Universities, Government of Grenada and the Commonwealth Secretariat, titled Empowering Climate Leaders of Tomorrow, Advancing Green Skills and Higher Education to Drive NDC Action, here at the NDC Partnership Pavilion. We are now close to the end of COP30, as Ankita had mentioned, where over the past 10 days, the world's focus is sharply tuned to the implementation. This is an implementation COP which we are talking about. We are beyond the pledge, must ask who is going to build a resilient coastline, manage the renewable energy grids, and develop the smart agriculture systems. And the answer is simple, they skilled people. The Commonwealth is a very unique institution with 56 countries of all the sizes, of all dimensions, starting from the countries with 10,000, 15,000 populations to 1.6 billion, people and of a country, and also out of 2.6 billion population, around 60% are under the age of 30. So this is a young Commonwealth, and this under young Commonwealth, the skill becomes very important. And in our current priorities for the strategy plan, which was approved by the board in 2025 to 2030, the green skilling and green entrepreneurship is a top priority of our leadership and of the Secretary General vision. So this is where we lie, that we are responding to the country's needs, whether it's a small country or big country, and also to see that the young people in the Commonwealth countries are truly mainstream in the development process. We see the future generations not as a leader of tomorrow, but the leader of today. And that's where this empowerment we are trying to make through in this green space. As you know, that the small and medium enterprises are the two drivers of the economy in many of the countries in the Commonwealth family. And through this skilling and entrepreneurship program, we are trying to make them green entrepreneurs who can create jobs, not only for themselves, but also for the other society. So in this process, we welcome all the participants. We welcome the professor from the ACU Commonwealth University, Professor Nathan. Thank you very much for joining. Welcome to each one of you. And also we have a representative who is joining online from the QS, Asmin Fernandez. So you can see that we are trying to build up this ecosystem of the government, of the Commonwealth family, and of the young people and the universities to see that this skilling and green entrepreneurship we are able to support and bring to the young minds as a part of the ecosystem approach. So thank you very much once again for being the part of this ecosystem and collaborating and contributing to take forward this agenda with us. So I know the time is short, so I'll hand it over to Ankita to take it forward, and wish you all the best for this very enlightening sessions, which we are seeing as a part of the action agenda in the COP, where you might have seen everywhere action, action. And this is also the first time COP, probably, that there is an action agenda room. I don't know, I've been to many COPs, and Probably this is the first time that this is an action agenda. We may not be in the action agenda, but actually we are talking about the action. So take it as a part of, action for the young people, action by the young people for the climate. And I hope that through this action, we'll be able to make some significant contribution using the power of the young people in the Commonwealth family and beyond. Thank you, and over to you, Ankita.
Thank you, Sureshi. With that welcome, I would like to now invite our keynote address by Professor Chinidum Nwajiuba. The professor has held many hats in his career. He has been Vice Chancellor of University. He has been a negotiator for Nigeria. He also is the governing board chair for the West African Science Service Center on Climate Change and Adaptation and Land Use. So with that, Professor, I hand over to you for your keynote address.
Thank you very much, dear friends, for this opportunity. If we can have that on the screen, then we can move fast. Thank you. So, good. She's already talked about me. I understand we'll be talking for about 10 minutes, and we're going to have to make this very efficient. In this presentation, we try to focus on just 3 things so that we give opportunity for others to contribute. Look at the climate and related issues of NDCs and the skills required, the Commonwealth and its strong historical roles, and why the Commonwealth is positioned to take this responsibility. Then try to see the synergy between higher education, green skills, and the NDCs. Well, we're in Brazil, historically, has played some role. The Rio, where all this, the foundation was laid to the Kyoto Protocols and the PA 10 years ago. And here we are in Belém, and everybody's talking about action, action, action. Now, the NDCs, that's the focus. That's what you find there. And post Paris, and the statistics showing how the latest submissions are supposed to be faring, and then the current status. Some people say we're not doing as well as we should be doing in the target of 1.5. May have actually already slipped, hoping that 2.0 does not slip. Now, so more action is required. Now, the Commonwealth, great organization, all over, spread all across. I struggle to find one in South America, but it's a great institution with a lot of history and a lot of contribution, especially in higher education, because it's huge, like I said. The English language is spreading. Commonwealth as organization is increasing in size. New members are joining. Huge impact in the past and present, and has provided significant thought leadership over time historically. So it's a great institution, not just an organization, great institution. Now, 3 key things when it comes to the Commonwealth and what is done. The Commonwealth University Association, which we belong to, courtesy of, I come from Nigeria, by the way, so it's a key Commonwealth. Connecting all the universities, promoting research, innovation, global understanding through collaborations and shared resources. Your scholarship, some years ago, I served in the committee to screen people from Nigeria for the Commonwealth. And of course, the Secretariat creating the synergies and partnerships all across the globe. Now, how are we faring in Commonwealth universities? I couldn't run away from that. Who trains climate negotiators? How much of this have come from work done under the Commonwealth University historical great interventions, being able to address current challenges? Now, we'll go back. When oil became important, so did oil jobs, oil incomes, and so on. Great impact. I also come from a country that's a major oil producing country, Nigeria. So we know the impact of the oil on the Nigerian economy, Nigerian society, and the demand for labor and a new generation of people that were not there. So now, change is coming. And a number of questions are quite relevant, which the Commonwealth, from its historically position, should be able to think and reflect on. When these shifts that are imminent eventually become as dominant as being projected, with all the opportunities and implications for jobs, poverty, incomes, what support should the Commonwealth Secretariat and government provide to higher education to be able to support the huge youth population, to be able to be positioned to take up these opportunities? What should be the focus of the Commonwealth and the Commonwealth universities in terms of research, policy, community engagement with respect to climate actions? Which countries are performing best in climate actions and carbon emission reduction? Commonwealth countries, non-Commonwealth countries? Which countries are doing best in renewables? Commonwealth countries, non-Commonwealth countries? Which countries are doing well expanding forest cover? Commonwealth countries, non-Commonwealth countries? These questions, the answers are out there. You can easily answer these questions. Which countries are doing well on these parameters, and how are we Commonwealth countries faring, and how are we Commonwealth universities faring? Now, the green skills. You familiar with this? The things need to live in a world that is emerging, a world that is laid out in the future, world of a low carbon economy, and requiring certain technical and managerial skills. How will this be developed among the huge youth population? I also come from a country, Nigeria, Commonwealth, which probably has young population over 60%. So the technical skills are required, and skills that are dynamic, because it's an emerging area and it's laid out in the future, and skills that can be transferable, skills in the younger generation to be innovated and driven by the universities, for younger generation to be able to be part of the creation of a sustainable future that addresses environmental challenges that are necessary to a low carbon, resource efficient economy, necessary to prepare individuals for a future of work, creating new job opportunities in growing sectors, and can be integrated into many existing occupations which require new tasks and processes. Now, but like I said earlier, the Commonwealth is historically great in what she's been able to achieve. Great universities historically, great contributions to research, innovation historically, but there's a new era, and how prepared are we for that era? So, these are the classical things you've done in the past and you still do with respect to higher education. How do you tweak this and refocus this to drive the new world that has emerged? That, I think, is a key challenge and direction for the Commonwealth higher education in the days ahead. Now, what we do in the Commonwealth university system, three classical things: teaching and learning. That's it. So we need to create platforms and opportunities for a new dynamic curriculum and pedagogy. The universities to be able to enhance performance on climate and similar metrics, to be able to work this practically with your numerous universities in the Commonwealth. So research, the same applies. Service and opportunities, three classical areas that universities deal with. So to teach the students, support public engagement and actions. I think that's where what we're doing today has fallen. Strengthen international cooperation. And then, in conclusion, the Commonwealth have a rich history of leadership in higher education, which is very commendable. The NDCs, key instruments for the Paris Agreement, quite a lot of struggle. The Commonwealth should be able to take practical actions in this struggle. Green skills, defined but dynamic and emerging. Higher education, innovation and changes required in curriculum, pedagogy, research and services to equip a new generation to utilize current and emerging and opportunities globally. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. I think that was a really good summary of where the Commonwealth stands and what the needs for higher education green skills are. I'm now going to hand over to our online presentation by Dr. Ashwin Fernandez, who is the Executive Director at QS Quacquarelli Simmons, which does the QS Sustainability Rankings of Universities. Over to you, Dr. Fernandez.
Thank you so very much, and a very good morning, exactly in the time allocated to me. And thank you so much, Suresh ji, for having me here with you today. So today, my presentation in the next 10 minutes or so is to talk about the impact what we have on the world with the QSS for the universities in the world. It is influencing student choices, it's influencing the employer expectation, also the government policy. And by 2030, climate change will directly impact the way universities operate, teach, and engage with society. And at QS, our mission at this time is to empower, motivate people. Right from the time QS founded itself in the 1990, was to enable, motivate people, that students, to make life-changing decisions. And we do that by fostering international mobility, educational achievement, and career development. And that's there are three major areas where I would like to touch upon with you. The first is that climate change will disrupt higher education by 2030, and we're seeing that. We're seeing campus shutdowns, we're seeing floods damaging the university infrastructure, we're seeing air quality emergencies forcing classes to go online, and there's going to be more of these by 2030. So action, as even the previous presenter mentioned, action is really, really important, and universities need to do more. And hence, the second area is sustainability is also a leadership issue, because action is lagging at this time, and universities need to do much more. 64% of institutions we have seen currently in the world highlight a commitment to climate action, but only 41% are training their faculty and staff to communicate this effectively. And also, we are seeing that international education, we see students moving out, faculty moving out, the global flow of students, that is also going to impact the credibility of what we're seeing with the carbon footprint. And we are seeing that the international staff and student travel across the world is going to reach an even unprecedented level of emissions. So there is definitely a need to have better action, and higher education is definitely going to be part of it. Now, while we're looking at the disruption and how that is going to impact all of us, and how it's going to impact higher education, is going to impact that in the world, there's also going to be an even bigger challenge, and that is with the future of work. There's going to be approximately 376 million workers in the world who are going to be displaced and moved out of their current jobs by 2030. So not only the challenge with climate change, but also automation and AI are going to be changing how we are going to look at the world in 2030. So in short, the climate pressures plus automation plus AI are accelerating at a pace at which traditional jobs will also become obsolete, and is exactly why universities must rethink what they teach, how they teach, and how they adapt and adopt to latest what's happening. When we look beyond, when we look at the green skills, we are seeing that while the jobs are going to disappear, there's also a great opportunity we have. There are three key sectors which are going to come out very strong, and the universities, while managing the climate change, are also ready for green. Now, that is directly going to impact climate change and the way we see it. All are tied to renewable energy, circular economy, sustainability, and so on. AI-related skills will grow by 60%, which is going to fuel innovation and research. And digital skills will grow by 35%. So if the previous slide showed that the risk and the issues that are going to come with it, this shows us the opportunity we are going to have for the institution. So universities must align their programs, especially around green skills. And are they going to produce graduates who are going to be future ready and globally competitive? And what we are noticing currently with students, while we're looking at whatever is happening, students are asking questions. 88% of students we surveyed across the QS International Student Survey said that sustainability was very or extremely important to them, with 40% of the students looking at the QS sustainability ranking and various other metrics to understand how the institutions are taking this seriously. Moving on from there, and this is from the QS International Student Survey, we're also seeing that students are asking further questions. They are looking at the actual visible impact, and they're willing to choose institutions who are sustainable rather than who have a better ranking. They're willing to go that extra mile, but they also want to know what is the institution doing in the sustainability area. So there are challenges coming in from climate change. Universities need to be ready for skills, but also they need to be ready to answer to the students of the future. And that is why we see that rankings, particularly QS, and people know QS for the World University Ranking, but we do produce the sustainability ranking, and we just launched it 2 days ago. And that is where we are seeing the change happening in the sustainability ranking. We are not developing, or we have not developed an SDG ranking. We are developing an impact and action-oriented ranking, which is looking at the impact of universities on the economy, on the people, on the society, on the students, and so forth. So we are looking at the ESG parts. We're connecting, of course, that to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, but we're also setting a precedence for universities to encourage them to submit data, to adopt sustainability practices, and of course, to be able to have reporting structures in place by having this first major ranking, which is looking to incorporate ESG, not just ticking the boxes for SDGs, but looking at how these institutions are going to have credible, transparent reporting in their institution. And that is why the sustainability ranking we have looks at 3 core pillars. And if we had even a couple of hours, we'll not be able to cover all the pillars. But in a short sense for you, we're looking at environmental impact, social impact, and the governance, each looking at areas beyond just ticking the boxes. We're looking at environmental education, equality, health, good governance, 52 individual indicators, and also measuring the country's impact on climate change and climate action. So when we look at all of these put together, we are seeing that each separate area we have here looks at one particular area which is important for 2030, and our institutions taking action. That's really what matters for the sustainability ranking. When we're looking at particularly the environmental impact, we are looking at environmental education. How are universities embedding sustainability? We're looking at, are they doing sustainability research beyond the SDGs? And is their campus sustainable, right from net zero goals to renewable energy, to policies, to student societies, emissions efficiency, and green innovation? We are looking also at social impact of the institutions. And for that, we are going beyond just the impact of the institution by ticking the boxes. Again, I'm using ticking the boxes because we don't want them to tick the boxes. We want them to have action. We are looking at employability support and strong inclusion policies at the institutions. We are looking at health and well-being, not just physical, but also mental being standards. We are looking at impact of education of the institution on teaching and learning practices and alumni impact. We are particularly sharing. And there are a total of 52 indicators. Moving beyond that with governance, we are looking at good governance practice. And here is where right from good hiring practices to open decision making to also transparent and ethical accountability of financial reporting, whether there are good cultural ethics in the institution through a policy, open access publishing, and also student representation in the governance body of the institution where the student voice is heard. So we are looking at beyond what a traditional institution should be measuring. And with all of that, we hope we can actually impact and motivate action at educational institutions. And because of that, we've seen the year-on-year growth in the number of institutions, academic institutions, represented in the QS sustainability ranking. In the current year, 2 days now, we have ranked 1,994 institutions, and that is a 186% growth in institutions. Now, this is a voluntary ranking where institutions need to submit data. But what is interesting of the sustainability ranking is that this data also feeds into the World University ranking. So if a university wants to be a world-class institution, they need to start first with being a sustainable institution looking at ESG. This year was a record year. We've seen many institutions come up, about 324 new institutions in the sustainability ranking, 108 locations covered, and that is just one part of the picture. When we look at leading economies, we're seeing Asia Pacific come up very strongly. We're seeing economies in India, of course, doing really well. We're seeing the Middle East doing extremely well. We're seeing the knowledge exchange part, where we talked of developing and developed economies working together for action. We're seeing that the strongest lens is this area. Environmental education has improved over the last 5 years. And also the weakest area in this lens is environment sustainability, while environmental research has decreased the most in the last 5 years. Now, for us, this is important to measure. Why? Because we are seeing that at this stage, institutions need to be aware of what they do, and they need to commit themselves to sustainability and company. We have several social enterprises with QS Impact Charity leading action for SDGs in Africa and South Asia. We partner with several institutions for connecting students with corporations to resolve sustainability problems. So we are doing a lot in the area of SDGs and sustainability and governance and social impact. So there is lots we can talk about, but the real change should come from institutions trying to use this data for change, for doing better things to impact the climate change. And it's really great that this event is happening there. I wish I could come there in person, but of course, due to conflict of my travel in Asia and government engagements in India, I couldn't do that. So with me, and happy to engage with you. Thank you so very much for the opportunity, and great to be with you virtually in Belém for this presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Now invite our panelists. So first, let me introduce Professor Nathan Hultman. He's the founding director of the Center of Global Sustainability at the University of Maryland. Please. We have Miss Imana Jeffers, who's part of the Caribbean Youth Network and here as an official negotiator as well. We have Mr. Leslie Smith, Director of Renewable Energy at the Ministry of Climate Resilience, Environment and Renewable Energy from Grenada. We have Mr. Success Ibrahim Kai Kamara, Head of Communications and Legal Officer at the Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency. Sir, please. And finally, Ms. Clara Barto, Director of Outreach, the Alliance for Just Deliberation on. So I think we've heard two really interesting presentations on higher education, both from the point of view of the Commonwealth and then sustainability ranking. So I'll start with you, Nate. Drawing on your experience with NDC development and the international climate negotiations, what role do you see that universities and higher education can play in preparing young professionals to contribute effectively to national and global climate policy making?
That's an example of how we need technical assistance. Right. Everybody here okay? Mine stopped. Okay, well, thank you, Ankita, for the question. I also want to thank the Commonwealth and the Commonwealth University Network and other sponsors and conveners of this very important event, as well as our keynote speakers. And I really learned a lot from both of them. And Professor Enwin Juba, is, particularly, thank you for that extraordinarily clear layout of why these skills are so necessary and what roles I think we could all be thinking about making improvements in our universities and our national structures and systems to help with those transitions very rapidly. So grateful for that, and thank you. So the question was about sort of as we think about NDCs, or I'll even frame it a little bit more broadly as kind of national strategies as governments are thinking about how to move toward those goals that are economic goals, benefits goals, and sustainability goals, kind of all at one time. What's the role of our institutions of higher ed in building this new world that? I myself have worked on the U.S. side in both subnational, national governments over the years, and I certainly have seen the importance of the kinds of skills that we heard about in the keynotes earlier today. Number one, to support governments for better understanding what the opportunities are for helping them. We all know our government leaders, and the world is always changing quickly. The technologies are changing quickly. Our situations on the ground are changing quickly. And I do believe it's part of the role of our research institutions, our educational institutions, our universities, and similar types of organizations to be helping understand those changes, helping understand those changes. Is it okay? Like this? All right. I hope you heard me. Anyway. Is it not working? It's okay now. You guys okay? You're okay. Okay, everybody's good. Okay. To helping understand our government leaders, whether at national or subnational levels, to understand those changes and the implications of them, and let's also think about helping them embrace the opportunities for higher action, because sometimes I think the world changes so quickly, it's kind of their jobs are different, and so we can help them understand those changes more effectively. The other thing I'll note, and this is actually something that was inspiring to me from the keynote earlier today, as we look at sort of what's happening around the world, I want to note that all of us know there's some challenges right now, some major challenges, to economic challenges, geopolitical challenges. My country at the national level is creating challenges, and I want to acknowledge that. At the same time, there are these new opportunities through technologies. There are these new opportunities through the way we're and I think that as we think about those changes, I want to kind of recognize and lift up the fact that a lot of these changes may be innovated more in some of the places outside the United States, maybe outside the global north even. As we look to the opportunities for methane, a lot of, like my country, maybe European countries, their infrastructure, their economies are kind of like stuck. Like we're kind of like ossified. We'll try to do better. But I'm going to say, like, there's a tremendous opportunity as these new think of all the inexpensive electric vehicles that are now going into our global economy from China. Right, that there's a lot there, and that manufacturing learning can be shared more broadly at institutions. These green skills that we heard about earlier today can be an area where innovation will be happening as we kind of try to do that work also in the United States. So I want to kind of leave it at that, and then thank everybody for the comments. So over to you, Ankita.
Thank you. I think that was really interesting, and I'm also really glad that yes, while we are the Commonwealth, we want to hear from everyone, because there's no point in creating unnecessary boundaries. And actually, jumping off from Nate's point, Clara, I want to come to you. Could you describe of the program that on deliberation on solar geoengineering, and particularly how it supports early and mid-career professionals?
Okay. Is it working now? Okay, nice. So yeah, I work at an NGO called DSG. We work mostly with deliberation, and the the pillar that drives us in any conversation in this field is climate justice, which is missed, and not just climate justice, but also intergenerational justice. And whenever we talk about these technologies, we're not only talking about the present and what's happening now, but for generations to come, whether we're talking again about research or governance. And so we started this residency program having this in mind mainly. It's impossible for us to have any conversations about it if we're not equipping a new generation of policymakers and critical thinkers really in this space. And so the residency is an opportunity for those who want to be engaged in the field, but haven't found a path to do happening in this field of climate intervention technologies, but others as well that you see early and mid-career professionals who want to contribute, but then they don't have the avenues to do so. Right now, it's mainly academic, right? If you want to contribute, then you have to do your master's or your PhD, but we don't need only academics. And we're talking about green skills. The residency is an opportunity for those early and mid still have a role to play. So yeah.
Thanks. That's actually really interesting, and I think that that gels in really well with what the academic can do and what the non-academic can do. So I think that's a really good place also to bring in Imana here. Imana. Imana, you've been working in the climate space for a really long time, which is interesting to say because you're also a very young person. You're here representing Dominica. You also have your own NGO that you've been working with to raise awareness. So I think based on what we've heard, what role do you think climate policy, climate finance particularly, can play in scaling up academic programs focused on green skills and innovation from your personal experience?
Destin, can you hear me? Okay, great. So I'm a part of a network called the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, and its basic role is to raise awareness and to engage young people in environmental action and to include them in the climate change conversation, especially at high level. So what role can climate finance play in higher education? So I'm also an alumni of the University of the West Indies, and I've actually seen firsthand how climate finance can play a role in terms of increasing green skills amongst young people. For instance, and speaking on the NDC instance in helping Caribbean countries basically do their national determined contributions. So that is one way. However, I think that there needs to be a greater role that it plays. It shouldn't be from what about the colleges? What about the high schools? I think we should include these different institutions so that we small number of persons going to university compared to those from a high school level where you have a larger subset of young people that you can attract and you can target. So whilst, yes, we're doing the research and we are doing the innovation from the university standpoint, but to build and actually meet the young people needs and meet country needs most important.
Good point. I really like that. And actually, this gels really well because I want to come to the Grenada experience here. Grenada has a really interesting model of eco school clubs. So I mean, we just heard that we need to level up. It has to be grounding up. It's have come from this as you
Getting into the specific question, I just want to put in the correct context what the situation is on the ground in Grenada. So, for example, the government has established that TVET would be one of the 4 focus towards TVET. Secondly, 60% of our population is youth. So a lot of the programs that we have in Grenada are direct and green skills. So putting all those 3 together, we already identified that there's an urgent need to establish mechanisms and policies that can, all of the schools, to create increased awareness for the development of green skills. There's also the initiative to strengthen the curriculum of the tertiary of care and maintenance, because these are areas of apprehension and misconceptions that currently exist in the market that we really need to debunk. The clubs that we have in some of these schools and some of our tertiary institutions, the government now is setting the policy framework that these organizations can help promote the initiatives of government as one of the avenues, because it's a whole of society approach. It is not only these you mentioned earlier on. This is a whole new area of opportunity. This is an area where we can take challenges and convert into opportunities. A whole set of new jobs would be created now. Now we speak about data centers. We speak about digitalizing everything, the renewable energy space, the cooling space. They've been working well so far, but there's always a need to strengthen these as we move forward.
Thank you so much. That's really so. I think with that, we'll also come to Mr. Success Ibrahim. Agency has collaborated with education institutions or youth networks to build capacity in climate resilience and green skills. And what lessons do you see for everyone here?
To be on this platform, and many thanks to the organizers and the Commonwealth Secretariat, and of course this space that the NDC Partnership Pavilion has provided for us to have this discussion. And as you can see as well, from the introduction, I'm Success Ibrahim Said Kamara from Sierra Leone. And you've seen me clad in the OAB, cap and pin-up. It's because back in Sierra Leone, apart from being a communications expert, I'm also a lawyer. And yesterday I had an opportunity to meet with the president of the Bar Association of Brazil, the Belém Para chapter. And then they had to give me some of these souvenirs as part of our meet. But coming to your question about what we are doing back in Sierra Leone as a meteorological agency. Well, for a quick background, the Meteorological Agency of Sierra Leone is an institution charged with the responsibility to advise government. War, because we had the civil war back in Sierra Leone, for what we are known for, blood diamonds and the civil war, we actually had a lot of our meteorological infrastructure destroyed. But after the war, meaning after 2002, coming upwards, the World Bank, the UNDP, of course, the WMO had, and the government of Sierra Leone had helped to build the infrastructure of the agency. And in going forward, our work has become so by the WMO. So, but what is lacking and what we've been doing over time is to take the issues of weather and climate change discussions to the lowest local communities across Africa and the world. It's about weather, about rain gauge, about weather stations, from the embryonic stage of our educational journey. But over the years, things have changed, technology. So our Meteorological Agency, for the Environmental Protection Agency, for the National Protected Area Authority, the Nuclear Safety and Authority, and also the Forestry Division, are now working with schools by building nature clubs to teach them about weather, get them involved in tree planting as a way of greening our schools. And at the end of the day, we also take them on field trips to teach them analysis. But again, we are also now working with the universities. Interestingly, the universities in Sierra Leone, particularly Mitimaga University, one of the oldest universities, to build a curriculum at the university so that people can be able to also learn meteorology at that stage. But again, we are also partnering with the Environmental Protection Agency and other institutions as well. And the EP as well is doing this very well by providing and incorporating meteorological and climate change issues in our educational curriculum. So we've been working on this, and to mark this actually in a potential way every year, on the 23rd of March, when we celebrate the World Meteorological Day, we have celebrations with the schools to bring them together. And from time to time, we also arrange campaigns for them so that they are not only able to learn from the beginning, because what is happening in Sierra Leone is the youth aspect of our population standing up to the occasion saying climate change is real. Of course, but for now, it looks like we are in the boiling pot. So in Sierra Leone, the youth have taken issues of weather and climate change as something for the future. So they are getting involved. And for us as also a meteorological outfit, we are building nature clubs, ensuring that we capture them young to be part of the discussions, to take ownership of what we are experiencing as a globe, as a country. And mark you, my country, Sierra Leone, from where I'm coming from, about 6 years ago, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, actually, based on its report, said my country is the third vulnerable nation to climate change disasters across the globe. And if that is the case, then our country, our government, through the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, President Julius Maada Bio, and his minister, Jiwo Emmanuel Abdullahi, have been able to put all the players in the environmental sector climate change, because all of the research, all of the indexes that are coming out pointing to our vulnerability and our susceptibility to climate change has emboldened us to bring all the players under one sector so that we can have a unified force to be able to tackle issues of climate change and weather across Sierra Leone.
Thank you. That was very detailed and really appreciated. We're almost to the end of our time, but I do want to give the panel a 1 minute answer question. We're almost at the end of COP. We have, hopefully the text will be out soon. But linking that negotiation process and going forward, we've been talking about 2030, we've been talking about new skills, whether it's at different levels. What is the one, it doesn't have to be one thing, but in your opinion, what do you see? How do you see that connect from what's happening in those rooms over there?
I guess the first thing that comes to my mind, it was really interesting while watching the first presentations. 5 years ago, I wrote my thesis looking into how prepared were business students here in Brazil to work in sustainable development, and the conclusion was really bleak. They were not prepared. And I remember looking a lot into the QS ranking and seeing that universities as well around the world were not taking sustainability seriously. And I think that sustainability is also a word that lost a lot of meaning along the way. But it made me glad to see that in the past 5 years, even though I wasn't keeping track of the rankings and all that, to see that it really became a bottom-up thing, that students want only the universities to be the ones driving the change, because there will be pressure coming from the other side as well. And higher institutions to drive the change. We also need the pressure coming from the civil society, which is what we usually see at COPs. And I feel like it's what really drives the process. And it doesn't mean that we're having really progressive decisions at the end. But I guess that just shows we need to do a lot more as civil society to pressure the ones who have the power to make the decisions.
Okay, thank you very much. And while I am not too very optimistic on the slow progress that these negotiations have taken, I think the message is very clear. Young people have agreed that they are no longer part of the conversation in the future, but they are part of the conversation now. And that is very instructive. Governments have already put the policies in place. The messaging is clear. And the enthusiasm and interest of young people, for young people in green skills and across the whole spectrum of the climate, to get their full opportunity and to be able to do the things that can impact the climate. And so my hope is that we can make the correct decisions for them. They are willing to work and willing to get the job done. Let's embrace them as much as possible.
Yes, just a quick one. Strongly, I have been here since the 3rd of November, and I'm sure I'll be among the last persons to leave COP. I followed the negotiations, and so far, at the beginning, based on preparations, I'm sure things were snail pace. But in the following weeks, we've seen quite some improvement in what we are doing. But my striking take is the call of the UN on climate migration. And climate migration is something that's actually also integral and, of course, at the centerpiece of the discussions here. Because back home in Sierra Leone, we have certain locations now based on sea level rise, land degradation, and so many other parameters within the climate change arrangement. We have a specific location known as the Eliboya in the coastal zones is sinking gradually, which will also precipitate people to move from that particular location. And when such things happen, the youth are in the center of it. So that's why, picking some threads from what my brother said here, that the youth no longer wants to just stand from afar, but now they want to be involved, get involved in the discussions, because issues of climate change is one for the future. For most of us that are now in our 40s and 50s, perhaps in the next few years we'll not be here to see, but the youths will stay on and on. So the better they are in the middle of it, the better for the climate and better for the globe.
And just drawing on what some of the speakers have already said. Yes, I agree that civil society needs to take a more active role. And I firsthand have seen how higher education have actually assisted in terms of negotiation. For instance, I am an alumni of the Masters in International Trade Policy program that is run by the Sheridan Franfel Center at the University of the West Indies. And they actually have a project called the Caribbean Shipping Lanes Project. And the onus of this project is to strengthen the Caribbean region's participation in International Maritime Organization negotiations. And I think this is a very important project. And I think this is one that should be reflected amongst other universities, especially within the Commonwealth and within developing countries. And it shows how that university can take an active role in negotiations by guiding countries, especially those who lack capacity in policy and negotiations, to help them advance their positions. So this is just one of the ways that universities can help and assist in the conversation and in climate policy.
Thank you. And in terms of the evolution, we're at a very exciting moment, picking up on these wonderful comments from my fellow panelists. My first COP was COP3 in Kyoto. It's a very different to help with our real challenges that we've talked about today. It evolved in the local leaders forum in the last couple of years. And now I think what we're seeing at COP30 with Multirao is the moment where we're turning toward a more inclusive, all of society approach. And I want to welcome the other comments to invite our youth to come into that process. And I thank the Commonwealth universities for helping us think through what we might do to listen to each other and to listen to those voices as we're bringing them in. So over to Ankita, and thank you.
Thank you. That was, I think those were really good remarks. I'm going to now end the panel. Can we please have a round of applause? And I'm going to invite my colleague, Ms. Chibesa Pansolo, who's the Commonwealth Climate Finance Regional Advisor for the Africa region, to provide some just quick closing remarks. Thanks. Turn it on.
Okay, can you hear me now? I hope this one works better. Can you hear me now? We've had this morning. Now, as you might be aware, about 1/3 of the world's population live in Commonwealth member states, and 60% of those 2.7 billion people are under the age of 30. So this is really a very important topic for us. So what are we doing to advance green skills? You might be aware that the Commonwealth Secretariat has been a pioneer of youth empowerment for over 5 decades through its Commonwealth Youth Programme. And more recently, we've established the Commonwealth Youth Climate Network, which champions youth-led solutions, intergenerational dialogue, and policy advocacy. Even more recently, we established the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, been expanding its work to support young people and capacity development. Our training initiatives enhance youth capacity in negotiations around the 3 Rio Conventions, and also around project development and climate finance, which equips the youth to access resources for climate resilient innovation and entrepreneurship. These activities have further embedded youth engagement in the Commonwealth's broader climate and environmental resilience agenda. The skills developed in our young people, particularly in project design and development, are a significant and worthwhile investment in NDC implementation and ultimately in the realization of the goals of the Paris Agreement. Now, this event here has been so rich in content, I cannot possibly summarize it all, but I would like to highlight just a few key points. So Professor Nwajioba reminded us that we really need our universities to be taking the lead in shifting our curriculum so that our current learners and future learners have the skills needed to innovate, to make our world a more sustainable place for all of us to live. Dr. Fernandez, who spoke online, reminded us of the importance of sustainability in higher education. And for me, this is actually something I'm experiencing personally as my youngest daughter is preparing to start university. Sustainability actually matters as one of the things that she's considering when she chooses between one university and another. It's really interesting to see that 18-year-olds care about sustainability, even more than we do, actually. It's amazing to see. It was really interesting to hear from both Grenada and Sierra Leone that the learning around sustainability is changing not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom as well, with environmental clubs at schools and at universities. That is amazing progress. And so I would like to encourage us all to embrace this call, to ensure that current and future generations are well equipped to address the climate and sustainability challenge. And with these few words, I'd like to say thank you all very much for your attention, to our panelists and presenters for your participation. Thank you very, very much.